This is Courtney Olson at Corinne Jones Community Garden, and part of our video series this year, we're going to be doing a monthly video educating gardeners and the community about ways to have a better and more successful garden throughout the low country growing season. So we're going to start out this time of year in February. We're always sort of finishing up a lot of winter crops and thinking about the season ahead for cool season plants, but then also our warm season plants coming on in March. And it's really important to prep the bed. We do this twice a year. So we do it usually in February, and then we'll do it again in September as we get ready for the fall and winter growing season. So I have a couple tools that we've taken out. This is a Cobra hand weeder, a metal garden rake, and then this is called a weasel. We've got compost, mushroom compost, which we supply at all of our community gardens for the gardeners. And then we also, to the community beds, we add bone meal, crab shell. And then today I have some of our very own worm castings from our community worm casting bin, or worm bins. So I usually start out by running the Cobra weeder over the bed to just make sure I've gotten any weeds, if there's any debris. You want to make sure that stuff is out of the bed. If there's any tree roots, you want to try to get those out. Any big lumps of anything. Sometimes you find a sweet potato that you didn't find last season. And we're just going to concentrate on this half of this bed today. So this is the general size that most gardeners have. It's about a 4x8. And we want to add 2 to 4 inches of compost. Throughout the bed. And the mushroom compost is not mushroom compost because it's made of mushrooms. It's actually made of cottonseed burr, stall remnants from horses. I think there is some peat moss in here. And so we'll add this. I'll take this rake and just sort of smooth it out as we add the other amendments. A metal rake can be used this way, or you can flip it to use it the other way to kind of get this moved out a little bit. And then as you can see, there are some pretty big clumps in here. So I won't do this on the video, but I would definitely take the time to break up some of the bigger clumps and go through, just so you know you're going to have a smooth planting surface as we mix it in. So then, again, we supply mushroom compost to all the gardeners. This is a good start to your garden. If this is all you want to do, that's great. And then maybe as you plant throughout the season, if you want to add an organic all-purpose fertilizer for fruits or vegetables, that's a good idea. But we prep all of our beds with this. And then I add, for a 4x8 bed, I add approximately a pound of bone meal. We're going to say that scoop's about a pound. And then 2 pounds of crab shell. So the crab shell helps to ward off root knot nematodes, and they're a problem in garden beds where you're repeatedly growing the same things year after year and maybe don't have enough space to do much crop rotation. So this, I would say, is an important thing. And then I was actually thinking about, I'm like, what do we do for people that are allergic to crab shells? Besides feel bad for them. You can use insect frass, so basically shells from crickets and other small insects, and that will work the same, and that's also available online. So we're sort of making a cake here. And then last but not least, you can use up to 5 pounds of worm castings. If that's something, if you have your own worm bin at home, you can also buy these online. Sometimes I do see them at some of the bigger stores for cheap, but you can get them at some of the local garden stores as well. So I'm just gonna take this and shake it. I did go through and use a little filter to filter out any big chunks of eggshells and stuff that was left behind in this, and pits. So yeah, now the fun begins with the weasel. So we take this. This is a great tool. We have one at each of the gardens for incorporating all of this stuff together. You just sort of run it back and forth. I like to go one way, and then I'll go the long ways. You can also do this same thing at home. If you don't have a weasel, you can use a garden fork to incorporate everything together. We can also get down there with either the Cobra or just our hands to move in and get everything mixed in. Sometimes it just feels good to be in the dirt. And we're really trying to get into those first probably 4 to 6 inches of soil. And then again, like I said, as we plant, especially things like tomatoes or peppers later in March, we're going to add additional fertilizer to those plants. But for now, this bed is ready to go for any of our brassicas, carrots that we might be seeding, certainly head lettuce that we'll be putting in. So now that I feel like that's all really mixed, the last part here is I'm going to grab that rake again. And I could have used this to mix stuff into. So I'm going to grab that rake, I'm going to spin it on the side. And it's sort of like, I guess, you golfers out there when you're smoothing out where you were in the sand trap. Same concept. So you want to have the bed, as the soil, as level as possible. And certainly, especially for when you're direct seeding, but also for when you're putting transplants directly in the ground, so that no water or anything is pooling in any specific area of the bed, and it's going to help it be more distributed. And again, you can go back and you'll see, like, if you do this really lightly, the clumps that are there will kind of rise to the top, and you can go back and break those up. So that's it. I highly recommend taking the time to do this and not just replanting, because you'll really see a difference in how your garden produces, but also how resilient the plants are from heat and pests and disease throughout the season. Happy gardening!